Howdy folks, we're going to be talking about spark plugs here. Primarily how to gap them. This is the way I do it. Now, even though they say with these fine wire electrode, especially with these plastic caps that they have of them, that you shouldn't have to gap these, I have found that is false. You can put a feeler gauge in them and they're off. They're either way too tight or way out in the rhubarb. The thing is that essentially they're using the same machine to do final assembly on these as they do on a more traditional spark plug, which, you know, it gets the plugs out the door just fine, but the quality control of that gap is somewhat to be desired. So, I know what you're first going to say. You're going to say, you can't gap these. Well, I'm going to tell you flat out, folks, you can gap these. You just got to go about it a different way. Think about it like this. At one time they said that breaking the sound barrier was not possible. So, but engineers looked at it a different way. No, it's possible. Well, alright. First of all, I use the coin when I'm gapping these bloody things. You don't actually use the coin for anything other than just as your feeler gauge. Now, you want to make sure that you've got a nice one. This one's made in the USA, so, you know, whatever that means anymore. We're almost at the 30 thousandths that it needs to be, but now this one is fairly spot on, but we need to gap it a little bit. So instead of on, say, a more traditional spark plug like this Champion, where if the gap is just too darn tight, you just bend it up with the tool. What I have found, so that you don't break off the fine wire electrode, take a pair of pliers and kind of rock it up. And I'm going to tell you this much, folks. Even though it doesn't feel like you're moving it a lot, you actually are. Trust me on this. That probably got us well over the 30 thousandths. Just at 30 thousandths gap. So, and don't be slamming this thing in there, you know. Alright? So be careful with that. Now, plug types. Depending on what manufacturer you have, the way that they package plugs is going to be different. You know, like Champions, they don't ever put that cardboard or plastic sleeve like such as the NGKs or the Denzos do. I've never seen a Champion spark plug. Well, scratch that. There was this really oddball plug I've seen once, where it had the grounding electrode that stuck out about that far, and the electrode came out just as far. Other than that, I have yet to see a Champion spark plug with anything really around the base. Even the standard Denso plugs have the plastic sleeve. And I mean, this is just a traditional, you know, traditional electrode plug. So, now, NGK does not use the plastic. They use a cardboard. Now the cardboard does the same job. It's supposed to prevent this gap from getting any tighter. But this one is 25 thousandths. This needs to be 30. Now, I tend to cheat a little and go whoop, whoop. Now I'm way out in the rhubarb. So now you don't want to be hammering on these, but you know, just a slight tapping will get the electrode ground back into place. And you can do this the same with the fine wires. You just got to make darn sure that you don't ram the grounding strap into that fine wire electrode. If you do it, then you're going to end up with problems. So I like to sneak up on it. And I usually get the 30 thousandths in the middle. I know a lot of people, they don't like the coins because they feel like it's gonna bend off to the side, the grounding electrode. It's a possibility, but I've very rarely seen it. And having it off kilter, it shouldn't, it's not gonna end the world. But you know, for spark plugs, making sure that they are gapped is a big thing. Now, ironically, even though these are all different numbers and stuff, these are supposedly going to go into the same motor. Now, there's also plugs where the porcelain and the electrode sit way down past the threads. You know, they sit concave of the threads. But, and see, we're only looking at 27 thousandths, maybe that. So, what we do is take, there we go. Okay. And we're still looking at about 28. We gained a little bit. Okay. We're getting there. We're getting there. With these fine wire electrode plugs, you really got to be sure that you're not beating the crap out of that fine wire electrode. Especially that tip. That tip. Man, oh man. Yeah, we're looking at a 30. So, you know, traditionally, folks, spark plugs only came in a traditional, you know, traditional grounding strap and copper core and just a standard porcelain body. They do have them in two different style finishes. This is what would be considered a nickel finish. I don't have one, but they have the ones that are black. Those are what they call a black oxide finish. Okay. Those are, I feel that they are being phased out in favor of the nickel plated bodies. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that there's a lot more aluminum heads being produced on engines nowadays, that they really, there's the big debate, do you put anything on the threads? Typically what I would say is, if it's one of these nickel coated jobs, you shouldn't have to put anything on the threads. If they're the black oxide and you're going into a cast iron head, then you should think about some sort of an anti-seize, or even just a good machine oil. Okay? If you do have this overwhelming desire to put something on the threads of these into an aluminum head, I would highly, I know I'm going to get a lot of bad comments on this, but I would say do not put anti-seize on these. Put a lightweight machine oil on these. You know, something in the 10 or 20 weight oil just on the threads. And you don't need to glob it on. Just a little dab will do ya. Let it roll around the threads. And realistically, folks, that will provide you as much lubrication as you actually will need. In terms of torquing these things down, you know, which one is it? NGK has a pretty nice setup. Tapered plugs, you tighten them down till they stop, then give them another 1/16 of a turn. The plugs with the gasket, which that's what these are, is the ones with the metal ring gasket. You get them till they're snug, and then you go another half turn. You don't have to go and put a angle torque meter on these. You know, there is no need to do that, okay, folks? Unless you're absolutely doing all out, you know, outlaw racing or whatever, you're not gonna see the quarter horse difference that it would make in a V8 engine. You know, you to go and really get these plugs in there properly. So, in properly, what I mean is the fact that there are things that you can put on these plugs to get your gap facing towards your actual combustion chamber inside your cylinder head. Because when you screw these in, they might be like that and your combustion chamber's over here. Well, that they have those rings and it puts them right there. Typically, I've never seen the need, unless, you know, you need every ounce of power. I mean, folks, unless you're really doing, you know, top fuel drag, I don't see the need for it. Even if you're doing the funny cars or the sprint cars, I really don't see it. I don't see the gains. I'd like for you folks to actually do this with those, to actually say, don't just be some idiot keyboard warrior. Actually, if you know, put it down in the comments. You know, in general terms, you know, what would your quarter mile time be difference, you know, because what, go from what, 12.99 in the quarter down to 12.98. Well, if it's that minute, really, you're just splitting hairs then. You know, that could just be the difference between the runs. You know, even in Top Fuel, they have the fudge factor. You know, so realistically, this is what you need. Okay, so folks, thanks for watching. Please comment, rate, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.